land explored by our ancestors extends from Altai to the White Sea. The scientific expedition Trails of Nomads continues to unveil the path of our forefathers. A group of scientists, led by pilgrim of the 21st century Sapar Iskak, has already visited more than 50 countries. Scientists reveal the exciting secrets of the past. Watch an amazing story of a great journey in the Trails of Nomads program. The scientific expedition Trails of Nomads followed the path of the cosmonauts. What information indicates that the Kok Türks were the first space explorers? Why did the space age begin at Baikonur? What influenced the choice of the profession of cosmonaut Toktar Aubakirov? At first, the man walked only on foot. This greatly slowed down his movement over long distances. Mobility appeared only with the domestication of the horse. From that moment on, the rapid development of human civilization began up to the conquest of outer space. The place where the horse was first tamed and the first rocket launched into outer space is the Qazaq land. These two revolutionary achievements, which radically influenced the development of human civilization, are associated with a great step.
Біздің бабаларымызға кеңістік үлкен.
For our ancestors, large spaces have always played a very important role, had a special meaning. One might even say sacred. I believe that thanks to this, our ancestors could own and manage such a huge territory from Altai to the Danube. But if you study the history deeper, then it is quite possible to say that they ruled in even larger territories, visited and left their mark in all corners of the world. When the blue sky appeared above, the black earth below, a man appeared between them. This is how the poetic inscriptions on the stone slabs of the Kultegin and Bilgekagans begin. They testify to the breadth and depth of the world outlook of the Kok Türks. The ancestors very subtly felt and understood the world space and their place in it. There are conclusions of the American researcher Joseph Skipper. According to the scientists, in the images in the form of a spiral carved into the stone, you can see the Milky Way. There is a very large similarity between the modern map of the Milky Way and these drawings in stone. This means that the Turks were the first to explore the heavenly space. Therefore, the question of the need for careful analysis is arising. Who was the first to prove that the Earth has the shape of a ball, and what Ferdinand Magellan had to do with it?
Біздің бабамыз Piri Reis.
Our ancestor Piri Reis, a Turkic admiral, made and left large maps in 1513 and 1528. We know that the Earth is shaped like a ball on the maps.
Білеміз тек қана карталар арқылы.
Drawings in the form of a spiral which give an idea of the Milky Way were not depicted everywhere, but only on certain stones. According to the scientific research, the energy of places with an image of petroglyphs is special. There are a lot of such places in the vicinity of the Baikonur cosmodrome, including on the way to Mount Karatau in the Sauskandik Gorge in Ulitau. One can stay on the bank of the Baikonur River. If you go even further, you will witness amazing geoglyphs on the Torgai land. It is no coincidence that the path into space begins precisely from Baikonur.
Біріншіден, олара жазық жер. Екіншіден,
firstly, it is a flat area. Secondly, it is close to the equator. Thirdly, the timing of the spacecraft departure from this place, the arrival and landing are in harmony with nature. That is why this place was chosen as the most convenient.
Солара, жаңағыдай конкурсқа салған уақытында ең ыңғайлы жер болып табылды.
Baikonur is a gateway to space on Earth. The cosmodrome is located on the territory of Karmakshi district of Qazaq region. However, since it is leased to the Russian Federation, there are certain requirements and rules for entry and exit. At one time, this place was even a closed strategic facility. Today, you can come here as a tourist. Saparis did not miss the opportunity and got acquainted with the space complex with a real open-air museum with his own eyes.
Қазір Роскосмос енді осы туризмді дамыту ретінде де
Now Roscosmos is also developing tourism. Any travel agency can obtain a special license from Roscosmos and invite tourists. At one time, we also visited Baikonur as tourists. We were there as part of a 3-day program.
Онда мынау бағдарлама бойынша 3 күн болдық.
The history of the Baikonur Cosmodrome begins from this place. On October the 4th, 1957, for the first time in history, the first artificial Earth satellite, Sputnik-1, was successfully launched into space from here. 1 month later, a dog named Laika was sent into space. However, several hours later, she died. After that, there was a 3-year break. Preparatory work was carried out to send other living passengers into space. In 1960, on August the 19th, the dogs named Belka and Strelka on the spacecraft Sputnik-5 ascended into space and returned safely to Earth.
Оның алдында бірінші космосқа ұшқан
Before that, even earlier, small insects, midges, flew into space in 1947. In 1948, 2 monkeys, Albert I and Albert II, were sent into space. Then the Soviet Union sent dogs into space.
Одан кейін Кеңес одағы ғарышқа жіберді иттерді.
This monument in Baikonur tells about the history of space. Unfortunately, this memory is associated with a tragedy. On October the 24th, 1960, during the preparation for the launch of the R-16 rocket, half an hour before the start of the planned flight, a large-scale accident occurred. The engine of the second stage inadvertently started working, and the gas emanating it reached the tanks of the first stage, resulting in ignition and fire. The disaster killed 80 people, according to official figures. Unofficial sources stated more than 120 people were killed. Among them were the Deputy Minister of Defense of the USSR, the Commander-in-Chief of the Strategic Missile Unit, and other high-ranking officials led by the Chief Marshal of Artillery, Mitrofan Nedelin. Information about the accident was announced only in 1980. Until that time, all information was classified.
Қауіпсіздік ережесі бойынша зымыран ұшардың алдында
According to safety precautions, half an hour before the flight, all the people nearby had to be in a special bunker. But this precaution was ignored. Most of the people were standing outside.
жұрттың көбісі далада тұрған.
The head of the TASS was the designer of the crashed R-16 rocket, academician Mikhail Yangel. On the day of the tragic incident, he called the first secretary of the Communist Party, Nikita Khrushchev, and reported the incident. Khrushchev asked Yangel, "You are the technical leader of the TASS. Where were you during the accident?" Of course, this question was logical. In fact, right before the rocket exploded, Yangel left the site to smoke.
Бірақ ол жұмысынан шығарылды.
He was dismissed from his post and suspended from work. After a while, he fell ill and died. Here is a sad story. Therefore, flying into space, preparing and sending rockets is a very complex technology and a very dangerous and risky job.
Технология деп айтар едім.
3 years after the large-scale disaster on October the 24th, 1963, an emergency happened again. A fire broke out in the silo where the R-9 rocket was installed, as a result of which 8 people died. Since then, October the 24th is considered the day of the tragedy in the history of space. On this day, all work is suspended at the Baikonur Cosmodrome. Rockets are not sent into space. Cosmodrome staff holds commemorative events dedicated to the deceased testers. The conquest of outer space was associated with many difficulties. In 1961, on April the 12th, for the first time in the history of mankind, Yuri Gagarin entered orbit on the Vostok 1 spacecraft and completed the 108-minute flight. The creator of the Vostok 1 spacecraft, on which man flew into space for the first time, is the famous designer Sergei Korolev. A monument was erected in his honor at Baikonur. The house where Yuri Gagarin and Sergei Korolev lived has survived in the city.
Все начиналось с Востока.
The history of the space industry begins with the Vostok spacecraft, on which Yuri Gagarin made his 108-minute flight into space. People are now flying to the International Space Station. We have an astronaut who has been in space continuously for 437 days and has set the record. There are astronauts who have been in space for about 1,000 days in total. This year marks the 60th anniversary of the human conquest of space. Since then, 566 representatives from about 40 countries have been in the orbit. Out of them, 65 are women. There are 3 Kazakhs among these heroes. These are Toktar Aubakirov, Talgat Musabayev, and Aydin Aimbetov. For 30 years of Kazakhstan's independence, the flight of 3 citizens into space is a great achievement. The heroism of Kazakhstan's cosmonauts is especially noted by the first deputy head of the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center, Valery Korzun. He has been in space twice. I was lucky to work with Toktar Aubakirov. At first, 3 of us were in the crew, Toktar, Alexander, and me. But due to the fact that the spacecraft was not prepared timely, we could not fly together. Toktar flew as part of the Russian-Austrian crew, together with Alexander Volkov and Franz Fiebig. Talgat Musabayev and I went through training as part of the cosmonaut corps. He showed his high professionalism and made the flight with success. We still maintain business and friendly relations. Kazakh cosmonauts Mukhtar Aymakhanov and Aydin Aimbetov, who underwent training with us, also showed high results. Unfortunately, we were unable to fly into space in time because there were no joint projects. Later, by the decision of Nursultan Nazarbayev and the government of Kazakhstan, Aydin Aimbetov flew. This was very good news for us. Aydin Aimbetov, despite the tight deadlines, managed to adequately prepare for the flight. This year marks the 30th anniversary of Kazakh cosmonaut Toktar Aubakirov's flight into space, which was held on October the 4th, 1991. But not everyone knows what influenced him to commit this heroic act. Sapar Iskakov learned the details from the cosmonaut himself. I got sick when I was still at school, and then I thought, I'll graduate the flying school, but because of my health, they will send me somewhere in the direction of the North Pole, and my whole life will pass there. I'll be an elder or a captain there. I thought a lot then and decided to go to the hospital. In the hospital, Toktar Aubakirov continued thinking about his health and the possibility of becoming a pilot cosmonaut. And suddenly, an event happened that greatly influenced his fate. I kept thinking, and one day I went to the stadium, which was located next to the hospital. And so I sat there and heard the lighthouse announce that for 25 minutes they would broadcast songs from the repertoire of the singer, who was called the Kazakh Nightingale, Bibigul Toleganova. I listened to the song. Suddenly it struck me. This was a brave woman. The whole Soviet Union listened to her. I was ashamed of my thoughts and fears. I said to myself, put yourself together, get up, go and tell about your readiness for further studies. Toktar Aubakirov dreamed of telling this story, which inspired him, awakened his will and spirit to the people's artist Bibigul Tologanova. The cosmonaut met with his inspirer in March 1991. Her concert was held then in Moscow. But Toktar Aubakirov, who at that time was studying at the School of Astronauts, was late for the concert. After the class, he found the countrywoman at the hotel and asked to take her to the airport.
Келе жаттық, Москваның жарысын енді өттік. Әлі бір енді 40 шақ.
We drove halfway through Moscow. The airport was about 40 kilometers away. At that time, the flight to Almaty was carried from Domodedovo. Then she said, "Son, you are a hero. Who are you? A test pilot? Now we have learned that you are preparing to become an astronaut. Now tell me, why are you driving me in your car?" she asked. I said that I had one story to tell her, so I did. She was surprised and said that she would sing a song to me, not on stage, but in my car. We drove 40 minutes or 1 hour, and she sang all the time. That time I went to space for the first time, sitting behind the wheel of a car.
Енді мен сол кезде бірінші рет космосқа шыққаным сол кезде болды. Рөлде келе жатыр.
6 months after the moment when Toktar Aubakirov listened to the beautiful songs of the outstanding singer, he flew into space. Until 1991, many people launched into space from Baikonur, located on Kazakh land. But among them, there was not a single Kazakh. It was a matter of honor for Aubakirov to change the situation. With this thought, he set off into space.
Мен енді бірінші айтқаным ракетада.
After the launch, I said in Kazakh, "Kazakh, for you, I'm ready to burn in fire and drown in water." And when I already took off and saw the Kazakh land, it was as if almost I flew off the rocket.
Жерін көргенде мен ана ракетадан шығып кете жылдадым.
Toktar Aubakirov stayed in space for 7 days, 22 hours, 12 minutes, and 40 seconds. During this time, he did a lot of research. He implemented an agricultural program. He also managed to find out where the salt dust of the Aral Sea falls. Therefore, the cosmonaut's flight is significant not only because it was performed by a Kazakh for the first time, it was also very important from a scientific point of view.
Қазан күнің бірақ даланың иісі бұрқырап тұр. Далаға шыққанда иісінен мас болдым.
Autumn, October the 10th. The smell of air was incredible. When I breathed this air, I was intoxicated. I smelled the earth and kissed the sacred archaic land. This land is now my second homeland. The archaic people were all very happy. Then I saw my people rejoicing for the first time. I realized how patient our people are. They had been waiting for this day for 30 years. Our people are a special people, and I'm glad and proud that I was born Kazakh.
Енді біздің халық ерекше халық. Тәуба қазақ екен, қазақ болып туғаныма.
The great step is in the center of the Earth, connecting humanity with space. For 60 years, many cosmonauts have launched from the Kazakh land to the space and returned to the Kazakh land. These trees were planted by them. The history of this park begins with Yuri Gagarin and is undoubtedly the leader in the number of trees in comparison with other cosmodromes in the world, because Baikonur is the world's largest site from where most of the rocket launches were made. Meanwhile, launches continue now.
Байқоңырға баратын туристердің саны әлі көп деп айту қиын.
It is difficult to say that there are many tourists visiting Baikonur, especially on the part of Kazakhstan's travel agencies. To do this, you need to obtain a license from Roscosmos. If you take the same space centers abroad, they receive up to 1.52 million tourists a year. Thanks to this, a profit of up to $500 million is obtained. Some centers make up to $1 billion. We must also use the existing opportunity.
Миллиардқа шейін табу мүмкін. Міне, біз соны түбі пайдалануымыз керек.
We will continue the story of the 21st century pilgrim's journey to Baikonur in the next program. In addition, Sapari Skakov, at the special invitation of the first deputy head of the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center, Valery Korzun, visited Star City in Moscow. Watch the next episode to learn more.